disappointing reads. Michelin? It may upset some people when they see it. Hi! Welcome back to my channel. I am Brenda and this is Reading by My Shelf. Today I wanted to talk about the most disappointing reads of 2023 for me. These books were not all bad. I think most of them I rated 3 stars. I'm putting them on this list mainly because I had higher hopes for the book than what it actually ended up being for me. So I'm putting them on this list because I had higher expectations. And for whatever reason, they didn't meet those expectations. And so even though they may have rated a 3-star for me, when I picked them up, I expected them to be, a 4 or 5-star. That's why they made this list. I believe I have 6 books, and yeah, let's get started. The first book that I have is actually a very loved book here on BookTube, and it may upset some people when they see it, but that book is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. I rated this book 3 stars. Comes in at about 391 pages. This is a space opera story that spans decades, even thousands of years. It is very thought-provoking, it has a lot of intimate moments. It is about a found family in this motley crew aboard a spaceship. It asks about sacrifice, what would you sacrifice for the ones that you love? This just didn't work for me. And while I can certainly see the appeal and the depth of what Simon Jimenez has created, his writing style just really kept me at arm's length, and I never found myself invested in the characters. While I was curious throughout the entire story, I wanted to know what was going to happen. I found that most of the time that is where my interest was, in trying to figure out things and trying to understand things. I just didn't really connect with the characters most of the time. And for me, that detracts ultimately from the story. I do very much put a lot of weight on the characters. I'm a character-driven story person, absolutely. So yeah, I think I gave this one 3 stars. And I would recommend it, and I definitely am interested in reading The Spear Cuts Through Water, because I do think that Simon Jimenez is a very talented author, and he has a lot to offer. His stories, like I said, it was very thought-provoking, had some great themes and ideas, and so I'm hoping that The Spear Cut Through Water actually works just a little bit better for me than this one. The next book on this list is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. This is book 2 in the Bright Falls series. I read this on my Kindle as a loan from my library, and it came in at around 400 pages. So I read book 1, and I can't remember the name, Iris Kelly something or other, and I really enjoyed that book a lot. I thought that the main character was witty, and the romance was actually really fun, and it wasn't too cliche or cringy. But this book, and I do want to mention, these are all LGBTQA romance novels. I just felt like this book tried way too hard to be inclusive, and it just felt very inauthentic. It felt predictable and cliched, and I just didn't. I liked one of the main characters, but not the other, and I really just didn't care 2 whits about their romance. And so I don't think I will be continuing on in this series. I do think I gave it a 2 or 3 star. I can't remember. This one just was not a good match for me. The next one on this list is The Quiet Tenant. This is by Clemence Michelin. I think it's a French name, so of course I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. I also borrowed this from my library and read it on my Kindle. It is 303 pages long. This is a psychological thriller about a serial killer, and it is narrated by the people around him, his daughter, his girlfriend, and his victim. So at the start of this novel, I was curious about it. I'm cautiously optimistic, as I am with most psychological thrillers, because they're either going to nail it or they're going to be ridiculous. So, at least in my opinion. So this one did end up being pretty predictable and honestly pretty unconvincing and preposterous in many ways. And this is one of those books where I'm gonna say that I hate read it, and I knew at about a third of the way through that, you know, these were just not, it was just not for me. I just really just didn't like much about it at all. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. The next book I'm going to mention, I actually received on NetGalley as a ARC, and this is The Night House by Joe Nesbo. If you're familiar with Joe Nesbo, he is famous for his Harry Hole series, in which Harry Hole is a detective, and it's kind of like a crime mystery detective novels series. And I've actually read one of those books and I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. So I went into this with high expectations, and I think I gave it a 3 stars. So again, it wasn't bad, it wasn't horrible, it just definitely was not what I expected from him. This was very reminiscent of Stranger Things. There's a younger kid, and I believe he's in high school. His name is Richard, and all these bad things happen to him. His parents died, he has classmates that start disappearing, he comes across this really spooky house, and there's a bunch of these, you know, typical clueless adults around him who are just blind to these mysterious happenings that are just blatantly happening in front of everybody's eyes, but they just somehow miss the mark. This story felt like, you know, a classic 80s inspired horror novel or show in the beginning. And then the second half of the book, it kind of changes, and I think that's kind of where it really lost me. So you have to kind of go into it with knowing that it's going to be kind of kitschy and garish. If you go into it expecting anything like his Harry Hole series, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because it is not that. I think that's where I'll leave it. I just, like I said, I wanted more, and this just felt so far off base from his normal stuff that it just, I didn't love it. The next book that I have is The Book of Laughter and Forgetting by Milan Kundera. I read this book as a part of my bachelor's degree program in one of my literature classes, and so I went into this thinking that I would like it. Because of the literature class that I was taking, it was reading global literature, and so this author is Czech and also French. He wrote this while in exile in France. So Milan Kundera very much was against the Russian occupation in his country. And so this book is his kind of way of speaking out against that, and it is a conglomeration of all these tales of individuals who have, you know, fled their homes due to political upheaval, or who have been separated, or some sort of division between them and their loved ones. But to me, it just all felt very disorganized and chaotic. I didn't care about any of the characters. I really struggled to get through it. And while I can see the importance of you know, the stories that he was telling and what he ultimately had to say, what his message was, I just didn't mesh with this. I didn't vibe with this at all, and I would not recommend it. I definitely gave it 2 stars. And last is Homecoming by Kate Morton. This book, huge book, 547 pages, I had really high hopes for, because I have read from Kate Morton many times before, and I've always loved her books. She does historical fiction. There's usually always some sort of a family mystery or some type of mystery. And so in this book, you have dual timelines, which is kind of on point for what she usually does. There's a family tragedy and an unsolved mystery, but to me, this book just was overly wordy. There was a lot of unnecessary detail that really just pulled me out of the story and felt very repetitive at times. And I also felt that the mystery was fairly predictable. I could kind of see the direction that it was going pretty straight off the bat. So having loved her other works so much, I was really disappointed that this one just didn't pull it together. It just was missing something. You know, I think that it's gotten good reviews and that other people have liked it. So I'm not saying that it isn't worth a read. It certainly is if historical fiction and, you know, family tragedy, drama is in your boathouse, then certainly give it a go, or maybe pick up one of her other books, because I really loved her other books, but this one just didn't do it for me. I was disappointed. 3 stars. So those are the books that I read in 2023 that I was disappointed with. I would love to chat about these books in the comments, or if you have other books that you read that you were disappointed with and want to share them with me, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more. I post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. See you soon.